Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next live stream. I'll be your producer for this session. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you for joining.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this live stream about connecting agents to your productivity data with WorkIQ. I'm Paolo Pialorsi, and I'm a senior developer advocate working in Microsoft and focused on Microsoft 365 extensibility and specifically Microsoft 365 Copilot and WorkIQ. And today we are going to learn what WorkIQ is. And in order to do that, first of all, we need to start to set the context. And when we think about WorkIQ, WorkIQ is part of the big family of Microsoft IQ, which is made of WorkIQ, FabricIQ, FoundryIQ, and WebIQ. With FabricIQ, you work with how your business operates. With WebIQ, it's about how you connect the web in an intelligent way from an agent perspective. And with FoundryIQ, we work with how your agents unlock knowledge. But WorkIQ, which is the topic of today, it's all about how your employees work in your company. So what are the people, the collaboration, and the workflows in your company? And we need WorkIQ because when we think about agents by themselves are not enough. And agents need more than just data when they work. Actually, we need to have specific context, specific information in the context of the users consuming the AI and the agents of your organization. And with WorkIQ, we can provide that specific intelligence, organization intelligence, that agents need to be more on top of the information they need to access and more accurate in the answers they give to your end users. With WorkIQ, we can transform all of the workplace signals and information into actual intelligence that we use to feed the intelligence of our agent. And with WorkIQ, we ground the intelligence of the agents with the context and the content we have in our organization. All of that with the security in place, the well-known security platform we have in Microsoft 365 to keep all of your information secure, protected, and accessible only to the user who can actually access the information they are willing to see. That said, WorkIQ is provided through multiple different protocols, and we will dig into them throughout this session. And those protocols are the REST API protocol, the A2A, and the MCP. Now, the A2A protocol is optimized for agentic use. So whenever you have an agent in an agent-to-agent scenario, you can rely on the A2A protocol. When you have the REST API endpoint, you use it to interact between WorkIQ and a web application, for example, or a device. And when you have MCP, you use it with a tool-oriented perspective whenever you want to consume WorkIQ from another agent as a set of tools available through the MCP protocol. When we use WorkIQ, WorkIQ is heavily optimized for agentic use. So when we use it from an agent typically. And it operates with the data we have in our organization, providing an additional set of intelligence on top of the data we have. And of course, it will always give you the content and information based on the context of the current user consuming it. So if we think about the main advantages of having WorkIQ in place, those are, for example, the intelligence. As I was telling you, it's not just about the data. It's all about the intelligence we put on top of the data. And with WorkIQ, we have that intelligence in place. We have the speed, because WorkIQ has been designed to work at the speed of the agents. So you can get answers really quick and fast from any agent consuming WorkIQ, plus the fact that whenever the technology will evolve, WorkIQ will rapidly evolve following the technology news and updates. Plus, we have efficiency in place. In fact, when you consume your organizational data through the intelligence of WorkIQ, rather than just getting the whole data out of your Microsoft 365 environment, you already get through WorkIQ a pre-processed set of information so that, for example, let's say you have an agent which is willing to work with data that you have in your Microsoft 365 environment. Good. Okay, so you make a prompt, you extract the information from your Microsoft 365 environment, and then you have to process all of that information on your agent, in your agent, and you have to have a lot of tokens to be used to process all of that content. Let's say you want to make a query for all of the email messages you have, and then you need to process them in your agent. Well, if you use WorkIQ in between, and you make an intelligent prompt trying to extract what you really care about, you can just get back from WorkIQ the information you really need, pre-processed by the intelligence of WorkIQ, so that in your agent, you will not need to process all of the emails available for the current user, but you will simply need to focus on the actual content that you are interested in. And as such, it will be more efficient also from a token consumption perspective. Plus, it is designed from an architectural point of view to scale a lot, because nowadays in the modern AI-based architectures, we have plenty of agents available and in place, and we need to have an architecture which can scale at the level of serving a lot of agents working with the intelligence of WorkIQ. And as I said before, we also have always the security in place so that every single request we make through WorkIQ will give you back the answer based on the actual content and the user making the request can actually access. So people and users will only be able to see what they are allowed to see. Sorry about that. So let's see WorkIQ in action to have a better understanding of what WorkIQ is. And in order to do so, let me switch to my demo environment right here. So this is the out-of-the-box user interface of Microsoft 365 Copilot. And here you can see I have this WorkIQ option right here, which is on by default whenever we use Microsoft 365 Copilot in our target Microsoft 365 tenant. Now, let's say that I want to make a really trivial prompt, like, for example, I want to learn who am I and what is my role in this organization. This is, as I said, a really trivial prompt that I'm providing to Copilot. But as you will see, by providing this prompt, the response I will get back will be based on the actual context of the user who I am. So now, with my current user in this demo tenant, I will get a response based on my specific user context. As you can see, here I get my user, my role, my organization. I can see my reporting line. All of these information are coming out from the knowledge that we have in our Microsoft 365 tenant and are pre-processed by WorkIQ and provided to the agent, which is right now Microsoft 365 Copilot, which will give me the actual answer at the end of the processing of this prompt. Of course, if we do this in a tenant where we have WorkIQ enabled, we get this kind of response. If you, just to make an example, will disable WorkIQ, you will not be able to see information which come out from the intelligence of the organization, and you will only be able to rely on the information you have on the public web, like any other chat-based AI system that you use nowadays. And this is a huge difference because with WorkIQ, we add the intelligence you have in your organization. So this is just to give you a very quick overview of what WorkIQ is and what the idea of WorkIQ is. But now, since we are developer and in this live stream, we want to focus our attention on WorkIQ from a developer standpoint, let's focus more on the architecture, on the components, and on the protocols that we can use with WorkIQ. So starting from the components, in the architecture of WorkIQ, we have all of the information that we have available through the chat, plus the context of the user, the capability to rely on a set of tools which will improve the quality of the response we can get, as well as we can have workspaces that allows us to manage long-running tasks and requests to WorkIQ, which can span across multiple interactions and multiple sessions within the same conversation with WorkIQ. Behind the scenes of WorkIQ, we have all of the organizational intelligence. And in order to use WorkIQ from a developer perspective, you can choose any of the 3 available protocols, which are nowadays A2A, MCP, and the REST API. So digging a little bit more into these options, the A2A protocol, as I was already sharing with you before, is the agent-to-agent protocol. And that's the perfect fit whenever you want to delegate a task from an agent to another agent. So let's say you are creating your own agent with whatever technology you like, doesn't really matter. And once you want to rely on WorkIQ and you want to delegate a task to WorkIQ, like for example, you want to generate a document based on the information you have in your organization, well, you can use A2A protocol. You can delegate WorkIQ to do some tasks for your own agent in a multi-agent architecture. And that is a really, really powerful scenario. But there are also scenarios where you simply want to have an agent which will make a request and get a response based on a specific operation, on a specific tool, and you don't need to delegate a long-running task to an external agent. In those scenarios, you can rely on the MCP protocol, the model context protocol we have available through WorkIQ. And that's the perfect fit for every scenario where you have an agent willing to consume one or more tools, so agent-to-tool scenario. In this scenario, you have an agent. The agent will use its own orchestrator to choose to consume a specific tool made available by WorkIQ, and will use that tool to retrieve information and to retrieve intelligent content from your target environment. And as I said, we will dig into every single protocol soon. And then the third and last option we have is the REST. With the REST protocol, you can build not only agents, but also, so to say, intelligent mobile applications or web applications or intelligent devices which can interact with WorkIQ in a human/device to agent scenario, where the agent is WorkIQ or any of the agents we have in our WorkIQ infrastructure, and the human/device could be the end user, the human being consuming the mobile or the web application, or could even be a device, for example, like, I don't know, a car with an internal software system which will allow your car driver to interact with the AI and to look into the AR agenda in Microsoft 365 or stuff like that. So these are the main 3 options you have. And depending on the scenario that you want to implement, you can choose the one that fit best for you. Now, what we're going to do is to dig into all of the protocols and see how you can use them. But before doing that, I want to remind you that you can also reach out to me through the Q&A section. And at the end of this presentation, I will take care of answering all of your questions, let's say in the last 10-15 minutes of this presentation. So just leave your questions in the chat, and I will be more than happy to address them when I'll be at the end of the presentation. So now let's focus on the WorkIQ A2A protocol, which is definitely a really interesting one, in my opinion. So A2A stands for agent-to-agent. It is a protocol. It is an open standard. So it is not just something created by Microsoft, but actually it is something that Microsoft contributed to together with other big names in the IT market. And the A2A protocol enables complex multi-agent architectures to be created, to be designed. There is native support in A2A for natural language and for the capability to interoperate with specific data types. So when it comes to A2A, what happens whenever you rely on the 8-way protocol, regardless of WorkIQ right now. I just want to give you a high-level overview of what 8-way is, regardless of WorkIQ, and then we will see how it applies to the WorkIQ context. When we are consuming agents through the 8-way protocol, what happens is that we have a client agent and we have a remote agent. In our scenario, the remote agent will be any of the agents available through WorkIQ. So the client agent and eventually interacting with an end user, with a human being, will be able to send a message to the remote agent, and the remote agent will be able to reply back with maybe a task that will be assigned to the remote agent. And as such, the client agent will be able to monitor the status of the task that is running on the remote agent side. And it can be monitored using a polling system. Checking every now and then if it is done and if it is completed, can be based on a stream. So there will be an open stream that the remote agent can use to let the client agent know how the task is progressing, or we can rely on a webhook to dynamically notify the client agent about the progress of the task assigned to the remote agent. But whenever we have an agent consuming another agent over the 8-way protocol, first of all, we need to start from the so-called agent discovery. What do I mean? Well, if I want to have a multi-agent architecture where I have an agent consuming another agent, first of all, the client agent will need to understand what the remote agent is able to provide. So the remote agent and any agent made available through the 8-way protocol will provide a so-called agent card, which is nothing more than a JSON file in which we have the definition of a set of information about the agent that is providing its own capabilities to the remote consumers. So, for example, in the agent card, we have information about the identity of the agent, about the endpoint where the agent is accessible, the capabilities that the agent is providing, of course, the authentication, because security is always in place. So in order to consume an agent over 8-way, we need to have authentication and security in place, or at least it is highly recommended. And in the case of WorkIQ, we definitely have it. And potentially, we could also have a set of skills which let the consumer agent know what the remote agent can do from a skills perspective. So we have a kind of an initial handshake where the client agent will retrieve the agent card from the remote agent, will understand what the remote agent can do, and then based on that handshake, will start sending messages and assigning tasks to the remote agent, and that remote agent will accomplish those tasks and notify the consumer agent, the client agent, about the progress and the outcome of those tasks. Okay, so let's try to translate all of these talking into actual stuff. So let me switch back again to my demo environment and let me show you what I'm talking about. And in order to do so, we need to, first of all, understand that, as I was telling you before, whenever we use WorkIQ, and for example, we use WorkIQ through the 8-way protocol or through any of the other protocols which are available, we, from a developer perspective, we need to have security in place. In order to do so, we need to properly configure our tenant to expose WorkIQ as a set of APIs through A2A, MCP, or REST. So that said, and first of all, what we need to do is to go to our Entra, an entry point. So I'm going to access my Microsoft Entra management portal. And in that one, if we go to the app registered in my tenant, we can see that in the app registration, we have a WorkIQ consumer application that I created. And if you want to consume WorkIQ on your own tenant, you will have to do so as well. You will have, first of all, to register the WorkIQ first-party application. And if you will go to the WorkIQ official documentation on learnmicrosoft.com, you can find the step-by-step process to do the actual registration of the WorkIQ application principal in your target tenant. And once you are done with that, you can register a new application in your Entra portal, and I've already done it here. This is my application, and it does have a client ID as any other application registered in Entra. It does have a tenant ID because we are running in a specific MySatisfy tenant. And here I configured a client secret for this application, as well as in the API permissions, I configure my application to have the WorkIQ agent.ask delegated permission of WorkIQ. How can I do that? Well, when you add permissions, once you have registered the application principal for WorkIQ, you can go to APIs my organization uses, and you can search for WorkIQ. You will find it. This is the first one. And here you can find the WorkIQ agent.ask permissions together with other permissions that we are not going to cover today. What I want you to focus on is that for this specific WorkIQ application, we only have delegated permissions. We don't have application permissions. And that's for a good reason, because WorkIQ always works in the context of a specific user. So whenever you are going to consume WorkIQ with whatever protocol, A2A, MCP, or REST, what you need to do is, first of all, to get a delegated access token from Entra, and that delegated access token will need to have the permission scope to consume WorkIQ, which is the WorkIQ agent.ask delegated permission. I said delegated access token because with a delegated access token, you get a token, an open authorization token, that allows you to consume the target API under the identity of the specific user who is consuming your application. So every single time you will reach out to WorkIQ to send a prompt, to get a response, to get some intelligent content from WorkIQ, that content will be based on the context of the current user, which also means that every single user will be able to see and we will be able to access only the information that they are allowed to see from a security point of view, which is crucial. It is fundamental from the security point of view. Okay, so now I have this application that I registered. So I can start consuming WorkIQ with an A2A interface using whatever protocol, whatever client I like. Could be Microsoft Copilot Studio, could be an agent that I create with Foundry, can be an agent that I create with a third-party technology. It doesn't really matter because the A2A protocol is an open standard protocol. What I'm going to do first is to actually use a tool that we released just a few days ago, which is called the Interactive Demo tool, and which is a really powerful tool. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I will share at the end of this presentation a short link, an AKMS link, to go straight to this application. Now focus on the functionalities, and then I will share the link with you later. But this is a really powerful application that we made available and which is also available through the learnmicrosoft.com documentation about WorkIQ. In this application, you can work with all of the protocols you see, MCP, A2A, and REST, supported by WorkIQ, in a kind of a sandbox demo environment where you can use a demo user or you can use a specific user in a specific target tenant. I don't know if you have ever seen the Graph Explorer, but we could say that this is the new Graph Explorer for WorkIQ, okay? Almost the same idea. In this one, for example, now I want to explain you how to use A2A. I can choose the interactive demo of A2A. And here I can see that, first of all, whenever I use WorkIQ over A2A, I have to choose which is the target agent that I want to use. Because in my tenant, I have Microsoft 365 Copilot, but I could also have additional agents. For example, I have a chef agent that I created a few days ago, just for the sake of helping users to cook Italian recipes. As you can argue from my accent, I'm Italian, so I'm obsessed by food and by cooking. So, jokes aside, this is an agent that I created and I provisioned in my environment. So when I use WorkIQ over A2A, I can choose if I want to use the generic Copilot agent, which will span across all of the knowledge I have in my organization, or if I want to target a specific agent like a declarative agent or any other agent that I created in my environment, and which might have a specific focus on a specific set of knowledge bases. And that's an important information for you, I think. Now, I'll stick with the generic Microsoft Copilot agent for the sake of simplicity. Now, I'm selecting this one. I can see the agent card. As I was telling you before, the agent card provides you information about the agent, about the capabilities, the skill, and so on and so forth. And here in the interactive demo, you have all of the information about the agent through the agent card. This is just a nice view of the agent card, okay? And then you have the chat. Through the chat, you can interact with this agent over A2A. So, for example, I can say that, again, I want to know who am I, what is my role in this organization, okay? Let's try with the same prompt as before. Now, what we can do with the interactive demo tool, and that's why I said that it is really powerful, is that we can inspect the log and see what's going on under the cover. So here we can see that I had some previously made requests, and I have this request to get the card of a specific agent, which is actually the chef agent I was showing you before. Then I retrieve the card of the default agent, which is the Copilot one. And then I made a request over the A2A protocol to retrieve the response, which is who I am and what is my role. But if we look into the log, we can see that we made a request using the A2A protocol. I don't want to dig into every single detail of this request, but as you can see, just a JSON request with the prompt I provided. And there is another JSON response with the output I've got with all of the formatting and information that I was able to show here in the chat. Now, I can even assign a task to this Copilot agent through my remote consumer, which is right now the interactive demo. Just to give you a better understanding of what I'm talking about, let me switch to a real agent, which is, for example, an agent that I can create with Copilot Studio. Here I am in Copilot Studio. I am in the new experience of Copilot Studio, and I have an agent that I created using the standard harness, so the previous one. And I'm using that one because in the standard harness, I can configure sub-agents in a multi-agent architecture, including agents that rely on the A2A protocol. So this is a really trivial agent, again, just for the sake of explaining you how WorkIQ works. So as you can see in the description, these agents show how to consume WorkIQ over A2A, fine. And in the instruction, I have process all of the user requests relying on the WorkIQ agent and then give the user the received answer. So it is just a proxy to WorkIQ, because right now I want to show you the technology. I don't want to create a rocket science level agent, okay? So if I select the Agents tab, we can see that we have a WorkIQ agent configured right here. How can we do that? Add an agent. We can choose to add an agent of type agent to agent. So we are going to rely on the agent to agent protocol to do so. And once we do so, we provide the URL of the agent, a name and description, and an authentication protocol, which will be open authorization in our scenario. And we can configure manually the settings. And here you can see we need to provide the client ID, the client secret, and all of these settings that I showed you before, partially, in the Entra portal. And that's why I started my demo explaining you that you should, first of all, register a consumer application in your Entra ID. Okay? Now, I will not configure it again, but I already have my A2A agent configured. So if I select this item, I can see that it is configured, it is connected, and everything else. Now, I can play with this agent, and I can do stuff like, for example, say, okay, again, and one more time, I'm obsessed by who I am. Who am I? What is my role in this organization? This could be the first prompt that I'm going to provide to my agent. And this will go straight to the Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot 1, because that's the default one when you do not specify a target agent ID. But what I want to show you is that now the orchestrator of my agent in Copilot Studio is relying on the external agent of WorkIQ to retrieve the answer that will be provided to the user. But we can also rely on the WorkIQ to assign more complex tasks. For example, in my environment, in my tenant, I have some content should be available here, like, for example, in this site. In SharePoint Online, I have a set of documents about improving my career, hiring procedures and stuff which is HR related. Okay, so why not asking our agent to accomplish a real task like, I don't know, create a Word document with a plan for improving my career. Now, this is a slightly different task. I'm not just asking who I am, what is my role, which is not the only one thing we can do with WorkIQ indeed. But I'm now assigning a task to WorkIQ, to the Microsoft Copilot agent through WorkIQ, to generate on the fly a Word document based on the knowledge we have inside our organization, which is the set of documents I briefly showed you before. And still, we are relying on A2A. We are assigning this task. We potentially can do something else while the WorkIQ is working for us over A2A. And once the response will be ready, we will get back text and a link to the generated document that we can retrieve and use as additional knowledge, additional intelligence for the agent that I'm building right now, this specific agent in Copilot Studio. And I honestly think this is really, really powerful. And that's why I wanted to start from the A2A protocol. Should be ready in a matter of few more seconds, hopefully, so I can show you the output. And if not, because it is taking longer than what I was expecting, we can go back to the presentation and come back to the demo later. Let's see, let's give it a few more seconds because I see it is processing. We see the input that was sent to the target WorkIQ endpoint, and so hopefully we should be able to see the outcome as well. And it is interesting to notice also that this request is enriched by the information that we already retrieved before. So we have the conversation history and we have the context in place for this interactive session. Okay, I will let it process all of the content we have, and I'll come back to this one once we need to go back to the demo environment. So now, let me switch to the next protocol, which is MCP. WorkIQ over MCP. When it comes to MCP, here we have a very interesting architecture, because what we decided to do in Microsoft when it comes to the MCP protocol, rather than having a ton of different MCP servers and MCP tools, we decided to give you just a really limited set of tools, which will allow you to do almost everything without having the need to know the syntax of all of the tools. What do I mean? Of course, in Microsoft 365, we have Teams chat, we have emails, we have documents stored in OneDrive and SharePoint. We have a lot of intelligence, we have a lot of knowledge. And of course, we could have an MCP server to access the documents in SharePoint, another one to access the emails, another one to access the team messages. But the key point is that when we use WorkIQ, from an end user perspective, we don't care about where the information we are looking for is actually located and stored. The end users simply write a prompt, look for something, and want to get the answer, period. They don't care if the content is in SharePoint, in Exchange, or somewhere else. And so does WorkIQ. So with the new and unified MCP server we have in WorkIQ, you can simply rely on a small set of tools, just 10 tools, and you can use them to get answers to your prompts as I was doing before with the A2A protocol, but this time it will be just a one-shot interaction based on a tool request and tool response. Or you can also get direct access to the content you have in your Microsoft 365 environment, regardless if the content you're looking for is an email, a calendar, a file, or whatever. And if you want to focus on a specific set of content, you can also do that simply by providing the right input to the tool you want to use. You can also act on data. So not only you can retrieve the intelligence of your organization, but you can also act on that data. You can create a meeting, you can create a new contact, you can create files and stuff like that. And all of that through a set of tools which allow you to do the basic operations like asking something, fetching, creating, updating something, and so on and so forth. And the key point here is that when you consume WorkIQ over MCP, you rely on a path to define the resource or the set of resources that you are targeting. And by doing so, the response could dynamically change based on the content you target. So if you are targeting emails, or if you are targeting chats in Teams or calendar items, the shape of the output will change. And that's why we provide you with a specific tool which will let your agents to learn dynamically what is the schema of the outcome that you will get from the tool invocation. And while doing so, your agent will be able to dynamically talk with MCP, through MCP with WorkIQ, and retrieve the information they are looking for. And last but not least, this is with the goal of providing the capability to have a self-describing MCP interface for your WorkIQ intelligent data. So again, it is easier to see it in action than to explain it through a lot of words. So let me go back to the demo environment and let me show you how the WorkIQ MCP works. I'm back right here. Oops, the demo god is not with me. I got a timeout. Sorry about that. But let's switch to the MCP, and we might come back later to this demo. Again, when it comes to MCP, I'm going to use the same tool as before, the interactive demo tool. As you can see here, we have all of the tools available through WorkIQ MCP server. As you can see, it is a very small set of tools, intentionally small set of tools, because we can use them to ask something or to search, to list the agent. For example, before I was choosing to use the Copilot one or the Chef agent. Well, you can make a request, you can call this tool, and you can retrieve the list of the agents available in the target environment, and then you can choose which agent you want to target when you make your request, just to make an example. So let's say that, okay, now it is, oops, okay, let me log in again. It might be that I need to refresh this page because it's been open for a while. And in fact, I'm not connected. Sorry about that. Let's retry the connection. Ooh. Not my lucky day today. Let me refresh the whole tool and see. Okay, good. So here I can list the agents, as I was telling you before, and I have my user in place, so I should be able to retrieve all of the agents in my current tenant, as well as I can do stuff like, for example, starting from an initial prompt, like here you can see I have the list of my agents available. I can start asking something. So I can, for example, say that my question for this tool will be, who am I and what is my role? Again, because that's the demo scenario we are using across all of the protocols. And as you can see right now, I can make the request through this tool. And as before, I have the API log in the upper right corner. So once I will get back my response, I will be able to see at low level with this amazing tool, what was the request on the wire and what was the response that I've got back from the tool on the wire. And this is really useful if you are a developer and you want to learn how to use this technology. Again, from an agent perspective, you will simply make a tool request and you will get back a response. You don't need to know what happens under the cover. But in the shoes of a developer, like we are, this is really powerful because you can learn how it works, okay? But you can do more, as I was telling you. For example, you can get the schema of the output you will get from WorkIQ MCP depending on the target resource that you want to consume. Let's say that we want, for example, retrieve the messages we have in the inbox of the current user. So I can say that I want to fetch, these are the options I have, and I want to fetch the messages of my current user. I want to get back a response in JSON format. I can call this tool, and I can see that here we have the definition through a JSON document of the outline of the response that I can get back from WorkIQ whenever I will make a request for messages in my inbox. Or I can use this output as the information I need when I want to fetch, for example, the emails that I have in my inbox. So I can use the fetch tool, and I can say that I want to retrieve information about myself. I want to retrieve information about my manager, about the people I have in my company. And by doing so, as you can see, I can target multiple resources inside my tenant within a single and unique request I'm going to make through this tool. And again, I can call it, and I can retrieve as the answer all of the information about all of the resources that I have about myself, about my manager, and about the people in my organization. And You might recognize that there is a syntax which is close to the REST syntax we use when we query resources in graph. But again, here we are also taking the benefit of relying on the intelligence layer we have in place with WorkIQ. And now, just to give you an idea, we can do something like the following. Let's say that I want to create a calendar appointment or a meeting inside my agenda. So I want, first of all, to understand what I need to provide to WorkIQ in order to do so. So I can go to the Discovery Get Schema tool. I can make a request to understand the outline of a create request targeting the events in my calendar, as you can see right here. I can call this tool and I can see how a request should look like. I will not dig into every single object here, but so to say, here you get the JSON description of how a calendar event should look like. And then I can create an actual calendar event. So for example, here I have my agenda. Actually, here I have my agenda. And I'm going to create something in this agenda to show you the powerful capabilities of MCP. So I'm going to target as the target parent URL /me/events. I'm going, actually, you even have a template. So you can even reuse a template you have right here. I'm targeting /me/events. And what I'm providing is the JSON body of a specific event that I want to create, which I have here on my environment. Let me paste it right here. Let me briefly show you what's inside. This is the meeting request, for example, for the Copilot Extensibility Community Call that we're going to have next week on Wednesday, on the 9th of September at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So, and I'm going to invite myself to that meeting. So I can call this tool and make this request to create a new calendar event in my calendar. If I go back to my calendar, you see I have now my meeting. It is in my time zone, so 8 a.m. Pacific time is 5 p.m. in my time zone, but I've got the event created. And this is powerful, isn't it? Now, in order to be able to do so, we need to be careful from a security perspective. And that's why, again, when it comes to WorkIQ, especially WorkIQ used through MCP, we also need to keep into account that we need to configure, or we should properly configure the authorizations for the MCP tools that we have in WorkIQ. And that's why I'm switching to the admin center of M365. Here, if we go under agents, we have the tools section. In this section, we can look for all of the tools, all of the MCP tools we have. And if I search for WorkIQ, actually, I can just see it, so I don't need to search for it. I can open it. And I can show you that aside from the generic information, I have the list of tools available in the WorkIQ MCP server. And I have the policies for this MCP server. And here, for example, I have all of the retrieval policies which are enabled by default, while the mutation policies, so those that we use to actually act on data, are off by default for security reasons. And it is up to you to choose if you want to enable them or not. It will take a while to apply those policies. But for example, in this tenant, I enabled, for the sake of demo purposes, I enabled all of those tools. And so now I can do write actions, create actions, and so on and so forth. And that's why I was able to create a new calendar event in my calendar, targeting my events in my current user context. Okay? So now, back again to the presentation. The third protocol we need to cover is WorkIQ REST. So let's go through that one as well. WorkIQ REST, again, is a third option we have. As I told you, it is a protocol that we can use to access the intelligence of our organization through REST. And we usually do that when we create a web application or a mobile application, or we are building a device which will interact with WorkIQ and with M365 through WorkIQ. It is an interface that we can use over REST to get synthesized answers from WorkIQ based on our content. And it is fully secure and compliant with all of the security policies we have. And you can use natural language to interact with it and to retrieve information. So, and again, let's switch to the demo environment and let's see WorkIQ over REST in action. Let me go back. Now I'm going to show you the last section of this presentation. And here again, I'm starting from the interactive demo, and then I will move also to another low-level tool to better explain you what's going on under the cover. So here again, I have an interface that I can use to send a prompt to WorkIQ and to retrieve an answer. And here you can see it is almost like a chat-based interface in the interactive demo tool. So I can ask, of course, what else if not who am I and what is my role? You must be fed up of seeing the answer of this prompt, but it is for consistency to show you the behavior across the different protocols. Now, what's happening now is that behind the scenes, the interactive demo is creating a conversation context, and within that conversation context is sending the first prompt. That means that I can interact with multiple prompts across the same conversation context and still get the context and the information across all of the requests that I'm sending to the WorkIQ REST API, so that I can get a better flow of interaction with WorkIQ. Of course, I got the same answer as before, but what happens under the cover? Well, you can inspect as before the API through the log, or just for the sake of showing you what's going on the wire, whenever we create a new conversation, we target the WorkIQ endpoint and we target the conversations endpoint. And we just provide an empty request and we will get back a JSON response, which will give us a unique ID of the conversation that was created. Once we have got this conversation ID, we can send different flavor of messages. As you can see here, we always target the conversations providing the specific conversation ID that we want to target and /chat. So it means I want to chat on that specific conversation context. Okay? Now, in the body of the request we send to WorkIQ, we provide as a JSON request the setup of the request we want to send, which can be a very simple one like this one, where we provide a message and we say, how can I improve my career, for example? And since I showed you before that in SharePoint Online, we have documents about HR, improving careers and stuff like that, I'll be able to get back an answer based on the content of those documents. And here you can see the output. And for example, here I get back an answer, a comprehensive answer about how I can improve my career based on what is actually available inside the document that you can see were referenced by the by WorkIQ and by the agent that was used by WorkIQ, so that we can see all of the citations used. And I guess you can pay attention to the fact that right now, since I'm just providing a prompt, I'm targeting the default agent, and I'm not specifying any target knowledge base. What I get back is a set of information based on multiple content, not only the content that I have in my tenant, but actually also content that is available on the public internet. Now, I can do more. I can, for example, say, how can I improve my career? But contextual resources, please disable the web search. By doing so, the response will only be based on the content that I have in my tenant. And as such, now, if I look at the citations, I will be able to see that I get back, oops, it's still flashing, okay, but I will be able to get a more precise answer based on the actual content that I have in my tenant, as well as I can even provide in the request a specific message, and in the contextual resources, I can say that I want to target specific documents or libraries or sites that I have in my tenant. And by doing so, again, specifying additional settings in the JSON body of the request, I can get an answer which is more focused on the content that I have in my organization, as well as I can say, for example, that I want to provide additional context. So it is not enough to provide a prompt and to say, focus on the content that I have in this specific set collection or library. But I also want to say that by processing this prompt, you should also keep into account that this is the context of the user. So we can build really complex scenarios relying on the REST endpoint and creating really powerful web, mobile applications, or we can empower devices to interact with WorkIQ and with the content and intelligence that we have in Microsoft 365 based on what we actually need. So the context, the resources, and the message we want to target. Okay? And this is, again, really powerful. So you have seen WorkIQ in action. You have seen it in action over A2A, MCP, and REST. You might be wondering, what is the difference between WorkIQ and Microsoft Graph, since I was able to use WorkIQ to retrieve my email messages or the people in my directory and stuff like that? Well, the difference is huge, honestly. And I'll do my best to transfer you the idea of what makes a huge difference between WorkIQ and Microsoft Graph. First of all, Microsoft Graph is for data access. So when you use Microsoft Graph, you make a request, you make a REST-based request, and you retrieve the specific data that you requested based on your request. If it is 1,000, 10,000 items, you will need to go through the pages, you need to do paging, but you will retrieve all of them, and it will be up to you to process all of them. With Microsoft Graph, you not only access data at row level, but you can also manage some of the workloads, some of the settings. And whenever you use Microsoft Graph, there are throttling rules in place, there are scalability constraints to protect the availability and scalability of the environment. And with Microsoft Graph, you can rely on application-only tokens, which means that you can create an application which runs in the backend, a daemon application, for example, which can consume Microsoft Graph under the identity of a specific application, not under the identity of a specific user. When it comes to WorkIQ, WorkIQ is not data access. WorkIQ gives you the intelligence. So when you make a prompt, you don't get back just a set of messages. You get back a set of content which is pre-processed by the intelligence of WorkIQ. It is targeting the agents. So the main consumers of WorkIQ are agents, and that's why we don't have support for the application-only model, but we have support for the delegated model so that we can consume WorkIQ always in the context of a specific user. You can consume data with tools, but that scenario is mainly to enrich the knowledge base of an agent, which will then process the output. And as you can see, as you saw, we can send a request which will give you back multiple entities within the same request, which can then be processed by the agent, which will give the actual answer to the user. And when you use WorkIQ, WorkIQ keeps track of the user context and of the context of the conversation, so that it will not just be a request for some data and a response with that data, but it will actually be a request for something which will be retrieved and returned by WorkIQ, processed by the intelligence of WorkIQ. Okay? So that's a huge difference, because WorkIQ is the technology you should use whenever you want to build an agent consuming your intelligence in a smart way, optimizing also the consumption of tokens. So just to wrap up, WorkIQ, as I said, is part of the Microsoft IQ offering. And the reason why is that all of the IQs are permission aware, aligned with the policy of your company. They allow you to do tracing, and they allow you to do proper governance of all of the content and information you access through the IQs. That said, and before moving to the Q&A, we have less than 10 minutes, but should be enough to go through the Q&A. Just few useful links. The WorkIQ interactive demo that I showed you before, akms/copilot.dev. The Copilot Dev Camp, where we have a section specifically focused on WorkIQ, where you can play with your own hands and with your own environment with WorkIQ. And of course, the Microsoft IQ series, AKMS/IQ-series, where you can find cookbooks which will help you understand how to use WorkIQ and Microsoft IQ in general. Okay? So that said, let me switch to the Q&A section. Let's see if we have some interesting question that we can address. And in the meantime, let me switch to this slide for the sake of it. So let me see in the chat. Okay. And let me start from the beginning. Are there recommendations for when to use different entry points? like API, MCP, A2A? Well, I think I gave you recommendations during the session, hopefully, because I explained you that each of the protocols target specific scenarios. So keep into account A2A for agent to agent with multiple tasks and background tasks, MCP when you want to just consume one tool and that's it, and maybe another tool later, and REST when you want to use WorkIQ from web or mobile applications or from devices. WorkIQ licensing is a little confusing. Okay, could you please explain on licensing? Well, I'll give you a short answer, and I will, if you don't mind, redirect you also to some content that we're going to share next week. Next week in the community call I was referring during my demo, there will be a demo session about licensing and consumption of Copilot credits with WorkIQ and CoWork. So I would suggest you to attend the community call on Wednesday next week. But when you use WorkIQ, you consume Copilot credit. You have to configure a billing profile, which can be based on pre-purchased Copilot credits, or can be pay-as-you-go based on an Azure subscription. There is a configuration process. I'm not going through that one right now because that's not the focus of this session. But again, next week in the community call, there will be a 15-minute demo about all of this story. So please come there and watch the demo there, if you don't mind. Then, with the specific MCP tools, MCP server be available in future. Not every developer is happy with the new one tool for all WorkIQ structure. Well, as far as I know, the idea of the unified MCP server is what we want to focus on right now. I cannot speculate about the future, but my understanding is that right now that's the offering we have, and the reason why we have it is because it simplifies the way agents can interact with WorkIQ. Rather than having to register and manage tons of tools, you can just focus on the specific needs you have, but you still have the same small set of tools. So every agent will dynamically be able to consume also any new and upcoming functionality made available through M365 or any other technology which will become available through WorkIQ. Okay. Okay, thank you for the feedback. Let me see if I can find other questions, but I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you. If an org wants to demonstrate measurable value from WorkIQ in 90 days, which 2 or 3 use cases would you start with, and what outcomes would you measure? Well, measuring the outcomes is a big topic. Actually, again, next week there will be a live stream in a different series of session where we talk about evaluating the outcomes of agents. If you don't mind, I would redirect you to that one. We recently introduced the Agent Evals platform, and you can use that one to evaluate the value of the outcome you get from agents. So again, there's no time here to cover this topic, but we are heavily working on making it possible for you to measure the quality and the results of your agents, including the quality of the response you get from the tools and all the stuff you involved in your agents. And by doing so, you will be able to measure if your agents satisfy the goal you have in mind or not. So I would suggest you to search for Agents Eval, or to come next week to the live stream we are going to have on Tuesday in the morning Pacific time. Okay, I see another one. WorkIQ respect, I think I have still 2 minutes. Respect M365 permission, good. But what happens when those permissions are too broad, inconsistent, or poorly managed? Well, sorry. If you don't have a proper set of permissions, the technology cannot help you. I mean, you should do proper review of your knowledge base and of your content before enabling AI on your tenant, rather than, in my opinion, enabling AI in your tenant and then realizing that the permissions are too broad or inconsistent. So I would approach the issue the other way around. So first of all, do a proper assessment of your content and of your permission. Once you are good, then enable AI and then leverage the powerful capabilities of WorkIQ. Let's see if I can go through all of them. I see one more. When emails, meetings, transcripting, discussion, formal docs have conflicting information, how does WorkIQ determine what is current and authoritative, and how can the user verify that reasoning? Well, when it comes to how it determines what is current and what is not, there is the same reasoning that we have behind the scenes of Microsoft 365 Copilot, because behind the scene of Microsoft 365 Copilot, we have WorkIQ. So what happens with M365 Copilot happens with WorkIQ as well. Now, how can you verify that reasoning? It is not always easy. Again, if you rely on the agents eval, you can learn more about the behavior of your agents. You can also use the debug mode. I would suggest you to search for debug mode in Copilot if you create your own agents and you want to inspect how the agent relies on the tools that it is consuming, for example, or if you created a Copilot Studio agent, how you can rely on the A2A protocol and see what's happening in the tracing of Copilot Studio. I think I ran out of time, and so I don't know if I can handle additional questions or not. Maybe people in the back end can let me know. Can I keep on answering, or should I stop now at the hour because we are out of time? Yes, I can. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so perfect. Are IQs now exposed to Foundry? Yeah, well, I get Aicha is better than me on this question, but yes, you can access the IQs from Foundry, and I think in this series of videos we might have already covered, or we will cover, how to work with multiple IQs in one solution. How does the data traverse over WorkIQ MCP? How does the data traverse over WorkIQ MCP? Is it over org tenant or over Azure Public Network? Honestly, I don't have an answer for this from a networking perspective. You can try to drop me a direct message and I can try to find an answer talking with the product group. I don't know what it does behind the scenes at the networking level. Sorry about that. I think this is the last one. Developers enterprise application want to be sure where information comes from. We are not end user, we want only 10 operation. Okay, that's a feedback. We can definitely share it with the product group. Thank you for sharing it. And of course, we value all of your feedback. As I said, right now, the idea of having the unified MCP is to have something that on the go will be able to adapt to the also new features which will be introduced without the need to recreate or add additional tools every single time we add new capabilities to the platform. And that's the choice we made so far, but definitely I will share these and the other feedbacks with the product group once we are done with this live streaming. Okay, I think that's all. Hopefully it was useful, and feel free to reach out to us through the social channels and stuff like that. Remember that the slides will be available on the Microsoft IQ Live channel, and you can continue learning on the IQ series and register for the other upcoming live events in the Microsoft IQ Live streams. Thanks everyone, and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find our survey link on the screen or in the chat, and we'll see you at the next one.